I think anything that's hard in life is going to be worth it. Success in business, it's hard. There's so many times that I wanted to quit, and that would be the easier route. The easier route would take off the pressure, quit. Homeschooling, easier route. Put them in school. I have freedom all day. Yeah. But what are they learning in school? Hey everybody, thank you for joining in on episode 26, Solid. Lexee and I are the hosts today, subbing in for Jeff and Brandon. Just talking about, what it is, what it takes to be a solid mother, a solid wife, and a solid partner just in life. Whose great idea was this?
I don't even know.
It started with Jeff. Actually, he got a text from somebody saying that we should be on, and Jeff thought it was a great idea, so he messaged Brandon. Of course, they're like, heck yeah, we don't have to do the podcast. Brandon's hunting, so it makes sense, but Jeff's like, everybody wants to hear from you and Lexee, so I don't know about that, but here we are, and hopefully we can give some valuable information and just our perspective of being in business, same business, raising kids, homeschooling, just all the fun things.
We have a lot in common now, don't we?
I know.
Like, I'm sure we would had like different childhoods. I've been thinking about this a lot.
Yeah.
Like raised differently, but then we both married young, started the business young. And then now I feel like I'm a few years older than you in like age and with children where we're at, but we kind of do a lot of the same things. So we're able to talk a lot about that, huh? Have a lot in common.
I wanted to ask you, I feel like we live totally different lives leading up to like the business, coming into the business, raised completely different. So I wanted to talk to you about that, how you're raised and just what shaped your life for success and being a great mom today. So, yeah.
So let's discuss.
Discuss.
I've been thinking about that. I thought of 3 words. I thought sports, church, and an awesome family. Like those kind of 3 things are what I feel like I spent most of my childhood doing and being a part of. I know I spoke briefly on the last podcast of playing fast pitch softball my entire life. And I'm so grateful for it. Like there's times now that I don't know, like we went to the Desert Hills championship, the football game, right? And like Desert Hills versus Crimson, the entire stadium is full for the championship for, are we 5A, 4A? 5A? I can't remember. Anyway, and this stadium is full. Like we're at Dixie, I'm still going to call it Dixie even though it's Utah Tech, but Dixie Stadium, like packed for these boys. And we left at halftime because my children were whining and complaining and wanted popcorn and everything else. So we left at halftime and it was freezing for St. George. Yeah. We've gotten very, very wimpy. I don't know. I can't handle the cold very much.
Can't handle the cold. No way.
So we were driving home and I just had that like state championship vibe. Kind of just like, that was pretty dang cool to watch these boys play. And I was like, a state championship's kind of cool, huh? Like kind of a big deal. And Brandon's like, I know. I've tried to tell you that 100 times because he's like, that's why I brag about you constantly. And I just don't think it's that big of a deal. And then you're kind of in it. Now, it was football, not softball. So we didn't feel like massive stadiums, but we were state champs. Like it was kind of a cool big deal. But I'm like, I don't think I thought it was a big deal because we just knew we were going to be there. Yeah. We just knew. So I don't know. And my whole life kind of led up to those state championships. And so by the time you get there, it was just like, this is just what you do. Right. You win state. So that was my life. It was spent on the ball field. My parents sacrificed a lot to take us everywhere. I mean, I was traveling when I was 8, 9, 10. Wow. I drove to Kansas when I was 10 for state championships. When I was 14, we took 5th in the nation. Oh my gosh. In Indiana.
Wow, that's so awesome.
And my mom was there, like my mom would ride on the bus with the team or, be there.
Yeah.
And I know my dad was working hard and sacrificing a lot to put all of us in sports that really we didn't have a ton of money growing up. And so I know that was a huge sacrifice. And then, just a lot of things that you learn in sports, obviously, just watching my boys, like trying to teach them these life lessons that you kind of can only get when you're involved in stuff like that and with teammates and a lot of great friends. And I don't know, I'm just thinking about like different plays that we would practice over and over and over again. We had this one that we'd call first and thirds, and we practiced it every practice, just over and over and over. So when it worked in the game, it was like so sweet because we'd practice that like crazy. And then just like a lot of spiritual experiences, a lot of church activity, going to church each week, spending time in the scriptures with my family. Those kinds of things really shaped, who I was. A lot of service activities and different things with people my age growing up, and just, great family, great parents, a lot of together time. Yeah.
That's so cool.
That's kind of mostly, so I don't know what happened. I think I became pretty, like, wanted to rely on the Lord and do the right thing. Like, I was kind of teased a lot as a kid from my siblings that I like tried to be perfect or something. And I really didn't. I honestly was like, I just want to do what's best, what I'm not going to regret later, what's going to work out best for me. So when I knew it was right to like marry Brandon, it was like, this is what we're doing. And same thing with when we started the business. So I felt like I'll do what is right. So I don't know, kind of interesting that how it all works out. What about you? What are some things that you've thought about as a child growing up?
Sports, definitely. I did gymnastics.
And I wish I did gymnastics because I wish I could bend and move. Now my body's like solid.
Super flexible. Yeah, I'm super flexible. But looking back, I was raised by a single mom. Moved to St. George when I was 8. And obviously she's working. She's working during the day while I'm at school. And then at night she had another job. She would waitress. So a lot of times I was either home by myself or at the neighbor's house. And then once I was 10, I started gymnastics. And I was competitive gymnastics. So I was there all the time. Eventually it got to where I was there 5 days a week for 4 hours a day. But loved it. And I look back and I'm just so glad that I had something like that, a sport, because it taught me discipline. There were so many times that I didn't want to go, didn't feel like going, but my grandma actually paid for my gymnastics. So she took me and picked me up because my mom was obviously working. And she was like, nope, you're going. Like, I don't care. I pay for this, right? And gymnastics is an expensive sport. So it just taught me a lot. And it's not a team sport. It's an individual sport. So I just knew that I had to depend on myself. And then you don't realize how much you're learning from it, from the discipline and showing up and every day for years and years. And then, if I work harder, I can get better and all the things until you look back, you're like, oh, that's why I'm so disciplined, right? I have a lot of discipline because of this. And so I think that I want my kids in sports so bad, and Rome does soccer and Aspen does gymnastics, and I watch them and it just makes me so happy because I just know that the benefits later on in life that stuff has taught me. And then when I was 14, I was thinking about that. I always think about this. I'm like, my kids better start working. When I was 14, my mom got me my first job at Quiznos. So her friend worked at owned the Quiznos. So obviously it's under the counter, right?
Yes.
But I thought it was so cool. And so once I got my first job, then my mom started making me pay for stuff. So if I wanted new clothes, you're paying for your new clothes. If I wanted to go out to the movies with friends or go somewhere, I had to pay for that. So at the beginning, I hated it so bad. Because I would watch all my friends. None of them had to work. None of them, and they just got given a lot of stuff and their parents paid for everything. So I looked at it like, oh, I have the worst mom. But now I'm like, she was teaching me something, and she was teaching me work ethic, and you can't just have whatever you want. You have to work for it. And so from 14 on, I always had a job. I always had multiple jobs. And then once I hit high school, I wanted to be a cheerleader, but my mom, and cheerleading is expensive. So then, and I had to choose gymnastics or cheerleading. I chose to go to cheerleading. Obviously, it's, your friends are doing it. And I remember it was like $1,000 to do it. And my mom's like, well, I'm not paying for it. So all summer long I worked and did all sorts of side things, trying to mow lawns and pick weeds. And then I had a job. And so I paid for that. And then I bought my first car I bought, and then I paid for my gas. So just leading up, I think by the time I was 17, I had a couple jobs. I was a cheerleader. I was doing all these things because, I wanted all the things that my friends had and stuff, but I knew that I had to work for it. And I did have a little bit of resentment towards my mom. But I'm so grateful now. And so I try to figure out, how can I do the same thing for my kids? Now, my mom couldn't pay for stuff for me.
This is the challenge, right?
Yeah.
And I think Brandon and Jeff talked about it last week or the week before, and it was this exact thing.
Yeah.
When you can, what do you do?
Right.
Because you are surrounded, like my neighborhood, surrounded by everyone having stuff. So my kids, I can't tell you how many times they've told me we don't have anything like our friends, right? And I'm like, okay, sometimes even though you can buy it doesn't mean you should, or that, so that is a hard thing. Like, I don't know. How do you feel like you've worked that?
I mean, you want to give your kids everything, but I look at, we didn't have everything, and look at, it gave us that hunger. I think if your belly is full, you're not going to the fridge, right? Yeah. But when your belly's empty, you're going to the fridge. And so if we're constantly just, our kids want this, yes, you can have it. Or our kids want that. At some point, we have to teach them the value of money and the value of hard work. And that's one of my biggest fears, is that my kids won't have that work ethic. So I'm constantly trying to, obviously sports, I feel like, help a lot with that and the discipline, but having them help around the house. And hey, you're old enough to clean your room. You're old enough to make your bed. These are things, so there's no book on how to parent. And so you just kind of think, okay, lessons that you learned from the past that shaped your life. But you do want to give your kids everything, but I also don't want them to be these spoiled, just entitled men, and Jeff and I were talking. He's like, I'm not giving my kids anything when I die. Like, we're giving it all away.
A thing on that was like, is it the best thing to give your children all of your money when you die? I didn't finish reading it, but it's just like an intriguing thing to think about, because I think that's exactly what's happening. Is we learned all these things because of, we had to, and then we want to provide all that for our kids, and they can't learn it without going through it.
Right.
And it's such a constant, I feel a constant pull of like, I want to give them that so bad. And like, oh, don't do it quite yet, Yeah. I don't know.
Like,
it's a tough thing.
Have them earn it. So if Rome wants something, I'm like, okay, well, let's figure out a way. Like, maybe we can go around the neighborhood. We can help the neighbors pull some weeds. You can earn the money, or let's find ways that you can make the money to get this, So,
and kids think that if they work for an hour, they should get like all the, I'm like, no, you get $1 or whatever. You know what I mean?
You
they
get
think
50
they
cents.
should. Like we had, I think Bridger should be mowing our lawn at this point. Like he's 9. He should be mowing our lawn. And part of me is like, wait, but I like my lawn to look nice, And so that's really hard to think about. And, if he struggles or whatever, like it is, I don't know why, but I think about that all the time. So my mom used to always tell me, so my nickname in softball was Lucky because I was number 7. So like if I made a good play, or, if I did something great and the team yelled out like, great job, Lucky, you can kind of get it. My mom would pull me aside and be like, you are not lucky. Like, you have worked hard for this. Yeah. You are not lucky. And that has stayed with me. But I don't know, just those things that we've got to teach our kids that we kind of naturally learned based on where we grew up and stuff. So
yeah. I think,
it's a constant thing.
I mean, you don't get lucky. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right?
Yes.
So you were prepared, and that's why you did so good. But that's so cool that your mom would teach you that, because I'm so lucky. When people say that, I'm like, no, like your life is by design. It's not, oh, I'm lucky here, I got this. Obviously, I feel blessed, not lucky that I found Primerica at such a young age. So leading up to, obviously, the work ethic, I mean, working all the time. I worked at Best Buy full time, then I was a teller, and I was always just trying to, in my eye, I didn't understand business. I just thought you had to work more to make more. Like you had to have more jobs, right? And there's only so much time in the day. So when Jeff took me to a Primerica meeting where you were, you and Brandon, and I just saw how I had no clue what anything was. Mortgage, life insurance, and all of this investment. I had no idea what any of it was, but I saw that you could make a lot of money. Didn't understand, but I was so motivated, and as long as it was something good for the consumer or good for, the people you're helping, I was willing to do whatever. Yeah. So I remember saying to Jeff, we have to do this. And he's like, it's way harder than it looks. But I just saw an opportunity, and thank goodness. I mean, I feel like my life before led me up to that point. And you too, right? When you guys saw Primerica, it was like, this is our shot.
Yeah, no, I knew it for sure. I just, I was the same as you. I didn't know anything about anything. I didn't even know what life insurance was. I don't think Brandon did either. We were just like, okay, let's do this and we'll figure it out. And it took me, I had kind of always felt, I know I talked about this on the last podcast that we did together, just like that I wasn't really smart in school. Like I always did my work. Like I showed up, I was always there, did my work, would ask for help, but like never really felt like I was really, really like intellectually like just smart.
Yeah.
And so when we first started, I was like, okay, what can I offer here? Like I'm not that smart. Like I'll work hard, but I'm not very smart. And so it took me a long time to kind of find my place. Like not a long time. I got going right away, but like to find like that I could offer something different than Brandon. I kind of for a while thought that I needed to be like Brandon in the business.
Right.
And it took me, years and years and years to slowly merge into like, my team needs who I am and what I bring.
Exactly.
So yeah, at first I was just, I said, I will never speak ever. Like I will do everything, but I won't speak. And then within a few months, Brandon, our upline, asked me to just do a short little training, like a 5-minute thing. I remember sitting down, never have to do that again. Like I will never, and I didn't know it'd be 20 years of me having to speak all the time. And what ended up happening is at first I would kind of hate it. I would like prep and I would just write note cards and I would just read from them because I was so scared. And I'm talking in front of a few people,
Yeah.
Terrified. And then it slowly, as the years go by, I started getting a little bit more, I don't know if it wasn't really confidence because I still was not wanting to do it, but just a little more guidance and like, this is what you need to be training on today. And I would try to pay attention. And when we'd have a big event, I would be like, I don't want to speak. And then I would just be praying, like, what does the team need to hear?
Right.
What do they need to hear from me? They've got Brandon teaching like how-tos and like these kind of things. What can I offer? And what happened to me so often is I would wake up and say there's, we had all day events or whatever, like the night and then the morning. Let's say I was speaking on a Saturday event. I'd wake up at like 5 a.m. with the clearest thoughts in my mind of what my team needed to hear that day. And I would just write it all down. And then I was excited to share it.
Yeah. Even
though I was still scared. I still like right before I was like, nope, don't want to do this. But that a little bit of excitement and it just, I don't know, it's been neat to watch that happen within myself of like, okay, maybe I'm not like school smart, but I can follow promptings and know what people need from me and what I can offer and what I can share. And it's going to be different than my spouse. And they don't need two of him. They can have him and me and whatever I can bring. So,
right. I loved when you spoke. I just, like you said, it was just different than what Brandon brought. And you taught me so much. And I modeled like the whole time in the business modeled, okay, how does Lexee do this? How does Lexee do that? And so I I think that, I was the same. I hated speaking. And then when I would speak once and then everybody would, and I always thought, they're lying or,
they're just being nice.
They're just being nice. I wasn't that good. And then people would ask for me to speak. And I would say, no, I don't want to speak. Like, that's not my thing in the business. But it's funny how God works. God goes, you don't like to speak? Well, guess what? You're gonna be in a business where you have to speak. Yeah. But having a voice in the business, because I kind of have always, for a long time felt the same way as you, is, I thought I had to be Jeff, right? I thought I had to train and go on kitchen tables and, recruit and do all these different things. And I did try a lot of different things, but you have to find, if you're in business with your spouse, you have to find, you guys are different for a reason, and you have to find what works for both of you guys. I don't need to be Jeff. You don't need to be Brandon too. And I think a lot of that is why we succeeded, because we helped them. We lifted them up.
Do you want to know why I think possibly is maybe just with Brandon and myself, I've noticed is he's a little more like polished, or I know Jeff used to call him like a robot. Like he tells you what, the right thing, where I'm going to be a little more like real and a little more relatable maybe. Yeah. And so that actually took Brandon a long time to kind of be okay with me doing that, because he was like, no, we don't show that we're not perfect. We don't show that we're not like messing up sometimes or whatever. And like when he started realizing actually people follow us better when they know I've made mistakes or I'm not a perfect leader and stuff. And I think that I helped bring that into, and it took us a long time to realize that. Yeah. That he was like, okay, because there would be times I'd get down and be like, okay, maybe don't be so like open about stuff. And not that you need to share your whole life, but just be willing to share that might relate with people that touches their heart in a different way than like just the how-tos, Right. So I don't know. It
reminds me of on Instagram when you see everybody tries to be perfect, right? Yeah. And you see these perfect life, like everything's great. And a lot of times I'm just like, I don't like watching those people or following those people. The people that I actually like following, and they get a lot of followers, are people that are real. They're like, just middle of the day mom with her bun on her head and just like, I'm just making it through my day. Like because it's relatable. Yeah. Like, we don't have this perfect life. And Jeff was this similar, right? He never wanted to talk about his past. He never wanted anybody to know like anything besides like joining Primerica and just being perfect, right? Yeah. Versus, no, a lot of people can relate to your past. And dang, like if he came from this place and is here, like I can do it too. Where if you just like, have the perfect life, perfect family, never did perfect grades, like people want, relatability. Is that a word? Relatability. Sure. Sure. See, that's why I think you getting up and speaking gave me the confidence to get up and speak. And then you, I remember you always used to self-improve, like always. You were always reading books, right? You still are,
my
right?
bedside table is so dumb.
Books, right?
Like, it's just stacked, and I like can't. It's like I can't learn enough. Yeah. And so I'll start reading, and then it will like lead me to something else, and then I'll start reading that, and I just keep stacking in my. I used to start and finish every book, and I still think that that's a really good thing, but there's times that you're like, you got what you needed out of that book, just sometimes. And it's like, okay, now I'm learning about this, that I've been like, okay, it's okay if I don't finish that one because I'm on to this one. And I still like to start, but I'm not reading like novels that are like page turners of, a mystery or something. I'm like, okay, it's like really big words that I have to focus on exactly what it's telling me. This is why our school system is broken. 100 years ago, God was taken out of our schools, something like that, where then it's like really in depth. And so I have to focus. And so it just takes me a lot longer to get through stuff. But I've always loved self-improving. And honestly, I think I always liked it. But then this business kind of like harnessed that. And like, I don't know, it's helped me a lot. And it really came in handy when I decided to homeschool my kids. Yeah. Like there were moments of like, this is what I've been preparing for
right.
my whole life that I didn't know because I always thought I can't teach my kids. Well, we are teaching them on like every day with everything.
Right.
And this is the most important thing that you could be doing with your life is teaching them these things. So self-improvement, I'm grateful for the business of all those years of like it being just talked about constantly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. I hated reading.
Oh, really?
I think I got through school, well, because I was a really bad reader.
Okay.
I never, looking back, I never read, like, when I was little.
Like comprehending what you're reading or like, I didn't know this.
Both, yeah. No, you did it?
I don't think I knew this.
Wow, yeah, I was a horrible reader. So what happens, you're in second grade, I went to a private school, and obviously they're way more advanced.
Yes.
I mean, it was like they were on a whole nother level. And so then all the kids could read. They're all writing in cursive. I can't read like at all. So your confidence level starts going down, and then you don't want to get called on. Then you don't want to read. Then you don't. So, and my mom was always working, so it wasn't like she was at home reading with me at night ever. So I just shied away from ever reading. And yeah, I think I graduated high school never reading a book.
Oh my gosh.
Like when we'd have to take book.
Like you do book report?
Yeah,
or
I would just.
What would you do?
I would look up Cliff Notes.
Okay.
And try to get as much information as I could.
You and Brandon both. Brandon BS'd his way through every writing assignment.
Oh yeah, just make up this huge, because I hated
and
reading.
passed. Yeah, and he could pass. Like, were you?
I don't think I passed. I think in school,
I would read the entire book and then be like, I don't even know. Then I wouldn't be able to write very well. Where he can totally BS something.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
I mean, it's really sad. And so I think so then coming into the business, Jeff always, you have to self-improve. You have to self-improve. And so I would get a book and I would maybe read the first chapter. And that took me forever because I was a slow reader because I never read. And then he would say, how's the book? How was the book? And it was great. And he'd ask me about it. And I would tell him like the first chapter. And he's like, you didn't read the book, did you? No. And I'll never forget, he said this to me. He said, we need a world of finishers and a world full of quitters.
Oh my gosh.
And it made me so angry, but he was right. So after that,
he could have said it nicer, but he was right.
Yeah. Jeff, this is how it is. It's coming out this way. So I never picked up another book without reading the entire thing.
Oh.
And over the years, I just kept reading, and it might take me a month to finish a book, but I started getting better.
So do you feel like you're still a slow reader?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Right? So it just shows you, because I've read so much, I can read a book fast. I can read good, where before I would rather die than read in front of people.
Yeah.
So interesting.
That's amazing. I love that. I didn't know that about you.
That's crazy. You didn't know that about me. But I'm kind of like that with my kids. Like I read with my kids every night.
Well, and your kids are really smart.
Yeah.
Right?
They are.
They're reading way ahead of schedule and writing and all that, way ahead of schedule.
Well, and Jeff's like, you just like, with homeschool, I'm just like, everything, because that was my biggest, I don't know. I was very insecure about that growing up. So I never want my kids to feel that feeling of just they're dumb. Mm-hmm. So I want to do all I can do to help them. And if that's, I read to them every night, and then they read to me every night. And that's like a huge, and it's probably because, I'm traumatized from when I was younger, that I don't ever want my kids to be in a situation where they don't feel like they can read.
Yeah.
So,
do you want to talk a little bit about both of our stories of why we started homeschooling? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think yours were probably for a better reason than mine. Mine was like,
no.
My husband's like, we're homeschooling. I'm like, no, we're not. No, we're not. And that was another thing. I always felt like I wasn't smart enough to homeschool my kids. Like, there's no way. Like, I'm still trying to, like, how am I going to do this? And I think a lot of people feel that way.
Oh, they totally do.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of moms, and they always say, I wish I could homeschool. I'm not that smart. I couldn't do it.
Everyone says that.
Yeah, and you don't realize you can do it until you do it.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
it's definitely, so Jeff always wanted to homeschool. he kind of always had that in, and I never in a million years thought that would be a thing. Never wanted that to be a thing. But then when we had no choice and there was lockdown and we had to homeschool, that's kind of what started it. And then we just kind of never really went back. I think homeschool, it's tough. Yeah. It's the harder route, but I think anything that's hard in life is going to be worth it. Success in business, it's hard. Yeah, there's so many times that I wanted to quit, and that would be the easier route. The easier route would take off the pressure, quit. Homeschooling, easier route. Put them in school. I have freedom all day. Yeah. But what are they learning in school? And there's so many benefits. I'm just so blessed. I think about the time too. What kids go to, I don't know how many hours. Do they go 7 hours? Mm-hmm. So 35 hours a week. Yeah. Times, oh my gosh.
But someone else that you don't even really know is teaching them.
Teaching them. Yeah. So you get to know exactly what they're learning, what they need to work on. Mm-hmm. And it's so fun. I am so glad that I stuck it out. Yeah. There are days when I'm just like, I am ready to freak out. But yeah, there's just so many beautiful benefits. So I know you're an amazing homeschool mom.
No, I don't know about that. You know what's so funny? When Jersey was little, I felt this drive to do something different, but I didn't know what. And we live in a smaller town, so I don't know. I just don't feel like there's a ton of options. So I was looking into like charters and different things, and I did not know what to do. And I ended up just putting her in school, and she was always slightly behind, and the youngest in the grade plus behind. I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have held her back. And then it just, I don't know. It took me a long time. I always felt the pull, but didn't think I could do it for sure. And absolutely 2020, when everything shut down, I just knew that whole summer. So the way that when it shut down in the spring and they were supposed to do online learning it did not work. Like it was awful. And I honestly, it gave me the viewpoint of like, this doesn't work. So if this is what's going to go on, we're not doing that. And then all summer I was like, they are going to require masks. I know for a fact there's no way they're going to not take this opportunity to mask our kids. Like absolutely that's going to happen. So all summer I felt this torn, like I don't want to do this, but I cannot in good conscience send my kids to school in masks. It just like, I made it through that whole time not masking. I am not forcing this on my kids. I actually have a lot more issues with the psychological problems with masking than I did with the physical and like the breathing. I was like, no, their minds are getting messed up.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I did not like it at all. And in full disclosure, my oldest was like going to high school and like, I am not going to stay home. And that was really hard because I did get her a mask that was breathable. Like I was like, I don't care. Yeah. Like you're not.
And it has holes in it.
It totally did. And I'm like, I don't care. And she got in trouble all the time for not wearing it. Yeah. The bus driver would call me and be like, I don't know if your daughter just thinks that she's not going to get, can't get sick or she's immune. I'm like, she is. Yeah. Like she's fine. I mean, so she did go to school. So, just in all honesty, like I understand that there are situations where that happens and she did go. But my other three, at the time I had a fifth grader, second grader, and then a preschooler. And I kept them home and did full day. And it took me all summer. Like even the first day of school, I was like, should I just take them? Like I did not know what to do. Like I'd gotten their teachers and everything. Like I had to email their teacher. I actually went in and told them we're going to homeschool. And so I'm sorry to just spring this on you because I seriously was fighting it like crazy. Yeah. And then I'd have these really cool experiences where I'd, again, wake up early in the morning and have these thoughts or these memories or things, or I'd be maybe reading in the scriptures and I'd have like this really cool just very clear picture in my mind of me teaching my children and that this is what I'm prepared to do. Yeah. And so it drove me, but then I still fought it. And it took me a while. So that first year we had a great year. I ended up hiring help after a few months because it was a lot to do on my own. And so that after, I did until January, I think, on my own. And then I had to find someone. So I found someone to come and help me in the morning and we would just we'd do some things together and some things just split. And it was great. And then the last 2 years, I've actually done half day. Yeah. which has worked okay. I don't know. It's working for now. I had the thought that because I've got some kids that actually kind of need to do, like Bridger, my 9-year-old, wants to stay home all day. He's like, homeschool me all day because he doesn't want to do the super scary thing of going to school and having, anything that could possibly be scary happen to him. So part of me is like, you need to do things that are hard for you.
Uncomfortable.
So I don't know. I ended up just praying about it the next year and felt good about doing half day. So I just called the principal and said, hey, I'm going to have my boys stay home in the morning and then I'll bring them at lunch. And he kind of gave me a hard time about it, but I went and talked to their teachers and we all got it approved. And then with Sailor, who's in older grades, we can just do 3 periods a day. And so we do that. And it's been a huge blessing. I chose their curriculum very wisely, I think, because I think what happened, like I said, is 100 years ago or more when they took God out of school. Yeah. School does not work anymore without God. It just doesn't. How do you explain anything without that, So this curriculum that I use weaves that throughout. So like Sailor's math is all about how God created math and here's where it is everywhere in nature, everywhere in the world. Yeah. Or they're like right now she's memorizing hymns and that's her writing and that's her language arts and stuff. And you have these moments with them where you're like, this is how you're supposed to learn. Yeah. Like this, and everything's supposed to be a little more integrated instead of just okay, math, okay, science, it all works together. Yeah. So I don't know. I've had some pretty cool experiences too. And with Bridger, I actually, when he was going into 2nd grade, he was really, really difficult. And I just wanted to send him. I just wanted him I need him away. Mm-hmm. We need a break. And I just had this thought one day that it was when you are not getting along with someone like that, like your child, you need to spend more time with them, not less. So I don't know. Some pretty cool blessings that have come from homeschool. What else? I've got a few notes that we haven't hit on.
Yeah. I mean, homeschool has been, it has been a blessing. But same. I mean, Rome is my more challenging child.
Yes. Some just do it and then some are going to fight everything.
Yeah. And exactly. Aspen's excited to do school. She wants to do more than she has to. Loves it, loves learning. And Rome, I'm dragging him, but it's gotten better and he's so smart. And I did put him in school for a little while, 3 months because I was losing it. And I was like, you know what? Maybe you need to go to school. And then it was horrible. He hated it so bad and he was being bullied. And so I was like, is it because he's never been around a bunch of kids, which he's in sports, so he is around kids. Yeah. But I just battled that and then prayed about it and just felt like it was the right thing to keep him home. And he's done really good. And actually Jeff helps him a lot. Mm-hmm. It's funny because they have the same personality. They're like the same person. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I birthed my husband. Mm-hmm. So Jeff gets him. And it's awesome watching, Jeff is just funny and tries to joke throughout, school. And he's like, you don't get this in traditional school and just joking his way through it. And it makes it fun. And that's what he likes. So,
well, and it helps us to have to get creative too. Yeah. If our kids aren't doing there's times I'm like, all right, let's go shoot some hoops or something. Let's go do that to get you to focus. Cause I know you don't in school, you're not going to get that. Right. Yeah. So it does. If Dodger doesn't want to read his words, you just have to get creative. I'm like, okay, let's put these on sticky notes. We're going to put them down the hall and you're going to jump to each one. Mm-hmm. And you just get different creative ideas to help them want to learn. So it's good for us too. Yeah. It helps us learn. I don't have all the information, but I do have a lady that I just met that, I actually didn't meet her. My friend met her and was telling me that there might be some cool stuff that we can do in Utah. So say in California, we're probably 10 years behind California as far as like the school system and all the issues and problems. So if you're in California, I'm really sorry, but also they have a lot more options. So this lady in particular, she was subbing in my friend's class. And so she met her. And she was the most amazing substitute I've ever seen in my life. She had every kid's name. She knew them like within the morning hours. She knew each kid and they all just loved her. And so my friend was talking to her and she's like, okay, this is what you do. Because in California, they had a group of teachers that I think the parents just paid them, but it was like 300 kids. And then you had teachers that you picked that helped anyway, but you had to work it through the government somehow. So I've got to figure that out. Yeah. But that was kind of exciting because sometimes it's like you want to have some other options too. I haven't done a really good job of getting involved in the community of homeschooling in St. George. It's been, we're at home, we're learning together, and then they do go to school in the afternoon and get that. But I don't know. It's good to have some options in the future. And so I'll let you know. Yeah. I'll let you know what we need to do if we want it. Because that actually is what I keep feeling drawn to do. I'm like, I don't necessarily want to just be at home just by myself teaching my kids. Like I want a community of it. Yeah. But we just don't really have that. And I was very surprised, way surprised, because like I feel like during the summer of 2020, I talked to so many moms that were like, we're not sending our kids. We're not, if they're masked, we're not. And then everyone just kind of does, because it ends up being just the easier thing. It is. And not to be down on that, because I did the same thing. But if I had a lot of moms say, if we had a school, like if you want to start one, I would be there. And I'm like, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to start a school, but I am interested in some alternative, you know, but yeah. Anyway, so I'll get more info on that and we'll figure that out. Or if anybody knows, they can let me know what we have to go ahead and do. So in our state, it might not be as bad. Utah is just a little slower. We have a little more conservative stuff going on, but we have less options as far as that goes. So
homeschooling and stuff. Yeah. Before we talk about something else, just with homeschool, what are some blessings that you feel have come from homeschooling? Did we already talk about that?
No.
Just some blessings that I feel, obviously we talked about the time that you get to spend with your kids. Also, I feel like the traditional school system teaches kids to be an employee.
No, totally.
It's just, you start at this time when a job starts. You end with a bell, you start with a bell, you have lunch break, you have weekends and holidays.
Sit in a desk, sit in a row. Yeah. Do all these things.
I had a girl tell me, she's like, boys aren't meant to sit at a desk all day long.
Not. Like that's why they all have ADD. Yes. Because they don't. They're just boys.
Yes, exactly. They're meant to go play and learn and explore outside. And the other day we went up about 20 minutes from our house, more up in the mountains, and we just parked our car and we were just going to go on a hike. And our kids, all three of them, just came alive. We're in nature and they're climbing rocks and they're jumping. They're so happy. Yeah. And we were there for a little over an hour. And then when we went to leave, our kids were like, please, can we stay here? And it just shows you that being in nature and you can still teach out in nature.
Oh, and we do our lessons. I mean, school lessons on our like front yard or backyard all the time. Yeah.
There's so much you can be, teaching is everywhere. So, and have you ever read like a book? I think it's something about unschooling. Have you ever heard of unschooling?
Unschooled.
Unschooled, yeah. So that is wild, and I still can't wrap my head completely around it, but you ask your kid, what do you want to learn about? Yeah. And then you just go learn about it. I think learning is a lifelong thing. So you don't stop learning once you finish school. Yeah. So I think homeschooling has taught us, one, the difference between being an employee and being an entrepreneur. Yes. And then you get to choose what you teach your kids. And then
because you can slip that in constantly everywhere where you're teaching. Like,
yeah. The family structure, I think, which is completely taken out of the school system. Yes. And I feel like you know way more than this because you've read books on it than me. Like I didn't know they took God out of the school system 100 years ago.
Yes.
What book is that?
It is, okay, Pete Hegseth wrote it, and let me think here what it's called. Something about the American mind. I could look it up and find it. No, it was so good. I mean, it goes back to like Greek and Roman. Like, it's so deep that it's so good. But I'm like, okay, the Greeks and the Romans and how they taught and trained, and then what happened. And so it's just that turn of the century, because schooling started out well and right and good, right, in America. But he gives this really good analogy that I thought was so good is, let's see if I can do it. I don't know if I can do it off the top of my head. He's like, say that you were in a ship that was like completely upside down. So like you have hallways that are now your ceiling, and like everything's just backwards and upside down, but that's where you were born and that's where you lived. And things aren't working right, but it's all that you know.
Yeah.
And if the ship was ever righted, then you'd be like, oh, this is how it's supposed to go. Mm-hmm. And that was the school system. Everything is just backwards and wrong, and teaching everything that's the worst way for kids to learn. My kids, honestly, at school think they're dumb. Same as I did. Like my kids are like, I don't understand what they're teaching because it's just not the best way to learn.
Yeah.
And so anyway, they slowly start taking out and want our children, honestly, I know this is a little deep, but our children to be their children. Like, the National Education Association actually says these are our children. Like, there's no one better to train them than us and our teachers. And that is so not right.
Right.
We know that's not true. Mm-hmm. And so then you have parents who are thinking, I better give it over to the experts. And we are the experts. Like, who knows our kids better than we do?
Yeah.
So I think it has to start with that praying, what does my child need right now? Because I'll get in the mode of like, no, we got to do your language arts. Got to get your language arts done today, you know? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's like, okay, what he needs today is this from me instead. And you still have to do that work. They still have to do their writing. I mean, obviously they're not going to be good readers if they don't read, or writers if they don't write. Mm-hmm. But if there's days where I'm like, okay, you're just not having it, we've got to think of something different. Yeah. And we'll play a game like that cash flow quadrant money game. I forget what it's called, to teach them money, or just change it up, you know? Okay, that's not working today. Let's do something else. And I think those have been huge blessings. I feel like Bridger, who, again, my child that I probably have the hardest time like connecting with, we've had the best, deepest conversations. I mean, he'll ask questions in the middle. Like, even this morning, I'm like, okay, buddy, I need like a minute by myself. Mom's nervous about the podcast. I have to get my thoughts together. And he's like, okay. But he's kind of under the weather. He's not feeling great. And he's like, but can I get in your tub? And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but I need to just focus. And then as I'm trying to just like make notes and stuff, he's like, it's so crazy how Jesus created the whole world, huh? And I'm just like, okay, I can't not have this conversation with him right now. Like, this is what he's thinking about. You've got to have that conversation when he's ready to have it, you know? So like, those are the blessings of them being home, stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, I swear every answer, I'm like, okay, so Adam and Eve, let's go back to the Garden of Eden. Like, all the time we're like, let's start from the beginning. Anyway, I don't know. I feel like he's grasping that, and you're going to have, he missed 2 weeks of school for hunting, which in my opinion is well worth it. Yeah. Like, he's learning so many important things being with his dad on the mountain. But he did miss, he does that half day. So I had parent teacher conference this week, and you could tell his teacher, super, super nice, but she's kind of going, he's a little behind now, in this and this and this. And I felt that little twinge of that mom, like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing the right thing for my kid. He didn't do good on his science test because he missed school, and I had to come home and be like, okay, no, he's doing the right thing. There's no ahead or behind. Right. He only learned a little bit less on that subject with his schoolmates, like the people in that class. That's it. Mm-hmm. He's not behind them. He's learning different things right now. He's still learning, and he's just fine. I have to remind myself of that sometimes when you have that little twinge, of a teacher or a principal or another, person kind of being like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if they're doing so great.
And that's so hard. Yeah. Because as a parent, you're like, well, am I doing the right things? And but how valuable is it that he went hunting with his dad, the one-on-one time he got from his dad, and that he'll remember for the rest of his life, and learning lessons that will help him also for the rest of his life. Yeah. Versus, I didn't learn this one science thing that won't ever matter.
Yeah. think it was on fossils or something. We'll learn it. We'll learn it in the real way. Do you not think, though, I thought the boys podcast last week was like one of my very favorites.
Yes.
I loved hearing, and I'm already like all in with the hunting. I've actually never hunted, which is crazy.
Jeff
22 years, I've never hunted.
I don't know how that's possible.
But, well, I think what happened is like when we were first married, it was like his thing.
Yeah.
And then once I had kids, I was home with the kids. Like I wasn't even thinking of going.
Right.
I think he wants to go on his own, but without me.
He needs some alone time.
But so I know all of his like stories, and I totally agree with all the stuff they were talking about, but just hearing, I don't know, it was really cool. And to hear some of Brandon's stories and how it shaped him, and then like even Jeff being out a handful of times and like how that's helped Rome. I don't know. Yeah. It was just really cool to see that.
Rome, I don't think I've seen him. Like he gets excited to play soccer, but it's another level. When Jeff told him they were going hunting, like he was so excited, even though it's freezing, right?
Yes.
But doesn't care.
And they have to get up at like 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, 4:30 in the morning.
And
hike and do all the things. It's freezing. They're there all day into the night till when it's, and then the next day, Rome can't wait to go again. And so it's just really cool to see that I think it teaches our boys, young boys, a lot of lessons that they will never get anywhere else.